want you to put your hands together for Mark Schaefer.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Good. You know, I love that Nutella story. You know, this lady sat on the stage and she said, I love Nutella, and then Nutella appeared, and I love BMW cars. Just saying. She has a plaid something, but plaid doesn't go with BMW. You know, I'm so very, very honored and pleased to be here. And as Vanya said, that you are a world-class conference, but something else I want to tell you is you're also becoming a world-known conference. And I think there's representatives here from, you know, more than 25 countries, but, you know, in America, there's buzz about you. People want to come here. They're hearing about it. So I'm so very pleased to be here. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about where I think the future of marketing is going. I wrote a book last year called Known, which I will be talking a little bit about, but I'm also working on a new book for 2019, and I'm going to share some of those ideas with you today for the first time, if that's okay. I'm going to test some ideas. I've been in marketing more than 30 years, and I'd have to say that there has been more change in the last 2 years than all of the last 30 put together. Many of the things that worked just a few years ago, they're not working anymore. So I've been really studying about what do we do? What sort of presence do we need to have? What is marketing in this sort of world? Because here is a very unsettling fact. As fast as the world is changing, this very day is the slowest it will ever change. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to get a lot more crazy, right? So let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, what has marketing been? And I stumbled on this photo on the internet, and you know, my first reaction was, oh man, that must have hurt. And then my second reaction was, what would make somebody put a company logo on their body forever? Did they just wake up one day and say, by gosh, this is the day I am jogging down to the tattoo parlor to get that Nike swoosh on my body? Of course, it doesn't work that way, right? And I started to think about, isn't this the ultimate sign of marketing success? When someone loves you so much, they want you to be part of their body. And so this is how marketing works. This is what everyone in this room is trying to do, no matter what business you're with. Over time, we want to create some sort of interaction, some sort of provocation with our customer to lead them to higher levels of engagement. This is marketing in one line. We start with awareness. Now, back when I was starting in marketing, the only way to really do that was advertising. Of course, we've got lots of different options today. We want this awareness to lead to engagement, to trust, and ultimately to loyalty. And this is where the magic happens, because now they're saying, not only do I love your company, I want to bring my friends as well, right? So this is basically what I've been doing for the last 35 years. I teach at a big university in America. I've taught there for 8 years. This is the only slide I've used in all 8 years. And today, I'm going to tell you, now that everyone's taken a picture of this, that it's wrong. Here's why. I've been immersed in a lot of projects recently, a lot of new research, and I'm seeing stuff like this. Our research revealed that consumers are increasingly likely to have a negative reaction to a company's attempt to earn their loyalty. I'm thinking, what? This is what I do. I'm in marketing. I'm trying to make people loyal to what I do. Are you kidding me? Did you know there's a business in New York City who specializes in removing logos from clothes? People don't want to show that they're connected to these brands, right? And what I'm learning and what I'm going to share a little bit with you today is how technology is dramatically changing consumer behavior. Let me give you a few examples. Let's start with my advertising consumption. I watch more television than I've ever watched in my life, but I almost never watch commercials. Do you have Netflix over here or something like Netflix, huh? Breaking Bad? You have that show? Oh, almost everybody's saying yes. Hard to watch, hard not to watch, right? Game of Thrones, right? How many commercials do you see during Game of Thrones? None, right? So I'm watching all this TV. I don't see ads. I have a new project that I'm working on with a company that's about a 3-hour drive from my home. I drive down to visit my customer, and I listen to the radio the whole time. In America, we have streaming radio services, Sirius XM, or I listen to an audiobook or a podcast. I drive 3 hours down, 3 hours back. I don't hear one ad. I subscribe to 4 online newspapers. This morning, I started my day with the online version of the New York Times. I didn't see an ad. In America, 1/3 of Americans have ad blockers on their mobile devices. In some countries, it's even higher than that, right? I would say that my advertising consumption has declined by 95% in 5 years. This is one of the things we've counted on in marketing, right? What about social media? Have you felt it's been a little harder to be on social media lately? This is why. I saw this statistic that between this year and 2020, the amount of information on the internet is going to increase by 300%. If you can imagine how big the internet is, we're going to have 3 more of those. Do you think it's going to be a little harder to be in marketing? Do you think it's going to be a little bit harder to stand out above that noise? Here is that picture right before our eyes. Organic reach on Facebook. You know, Mark Zuckerberg made this announcement in January, right? A lot of people were calling it Facebook Zero because he's saying, oh, you know, we're not going to be able to put corporate content on the Facebook newsfeed anymore. He hasn't been doing it anyway. This is just a continuation. In 2017, actually, the average organic reach, and what I mean by organic reach is of the people who follow you on Facebook, how many of the people who follow you actually see what you post without an ad? It's now less than 0.5% if you're a company, right? Without boosting it. So if it didn't work last year, it probably doesn't work this year either. And I was talking to a guy at a conference last week. He said, Facebook is punishing us. Facebook isn't punishing us. We did this to ourselves. There's too much stuff. The average person on Facebook can see 2,000 stories a day. It's just too much. So Facebook has to take it down, right? and manage this for us. So let's start talking about where the world is going. What does marketing look like in this crazy environment where advertising doesn't work and marketing doesn't work, social media doesn't work like it used to? And I want to tell you a story. This is the most powerful story about marketing I've heard in the last 5 years. And like all good marketing stories, this one begins with soap. So this is a famous soap brand in America. It's called Ivory Soap. This was the first soap ever advertised in America. And this big company called Procter & Gamble has spent millions and millions of dollars to advertise this soap. When I was a little boy, this was the only soap my mother would put on my tender little bum. But I've been reading how all of these big brands have been declining because the advertising doesn't work like it used to. And I went into a young couple's house. I live in a beautiful part of America called Tennessee. I live in the city near the Smoky Mountain National Park. And I visited this young couple's home, and I walked into their home, and they had a bar of soap from the Knoxville Soap Company. Cucumber and grit soap. Grit is like I think it's kind of like corn or something. And I just looked at this. I thought, why isn't she buying this soap that these companies are spending millions and millions of dollars to advertise? I said, why did you buy this soap? This company has been trying to get you to buy their soap for 100 years. Why would you buy this? Why do you love this brand? She said, I don't know if I love the brand, but I love the hands that made it. And this is the most profound story I can tell you today about what marketing means as we go forward. And she started to tell me all about this company. She said, I'm in the startup community here in Knoxville, and these people come to the community. She told me the whole story about their business, how they started their business, and how they're trying to create a sustainable business. They treat their employees so well. They use local ingredients. They're committed to building a strong business in our community. And she just said, I love these people. And now I'm buying their soap. Because this is something that we see in all of the research. There's this huge trend changing today where our businesses have been built on advertising and agencies and campaigns. And we're moving away from that. For 10 consecutive years, there's this research that Edelman does. Perhaps you're familiar with this, the Edelman Trust Barometer. For 10 consecutive years, trust has declined in businesses, brands, and advertising. And who do people trust? Ourselves, our friends, entrepreneurs, influencers. What's moving the needle today? User-generated content. People will not believe your company. They won't believe if you say, we have the greatest soap. But if your friends say you have the greatest soap, that they'll believe. That's user-generated content. The research shows when your friends, when people in the community post information about a product, it's believed 600 to 700% more than the company. Reviews. People will believe a review from a stranger before they'll believe your advertising. And influencers, friends and influencers, right? Who are the people that spread the stories, right? In America, people are learning about the Spark Me conference. And it's not because the Spark Me conference is saying we're the greatest conference in our region. It's because the people who came are saying this is a great place to be. You all need to come. So this is a really interesting trend. So this leads us back to this. How do we start thinking about these changes? How the world is changing? What do we do as marketers? If loyalty isn't enough, what do we do? Maybe the answer is love. I really liked Vanya's introduction. It was a better introduction than he could have ever known about what I'm talking about today. So how do we love something? Whenever you love this conference, do you love this logo? Do you love this sign? No. You love the people. You love the speakers. You love the organizers. You love the people behind the conference. We can't love a logo. We can't love an ad, but we can love people. So as marketers, we have two choices. Number one, we can become a person. If you have millions of dollars to spend over many, many years, you can become a personality like McDonald's or Nike or Coca-Cola. Vanya mentioned I gave a talk in Poland last year and asked the people in Poland, when you think of Coca-Cola, what do you think of? They said polar bears. You have that here, right? So everywhere, we don't think about sugar water that makes you sick. We think about polar bears, right? Now, I am guessing that most of you do not have millions of dollars to spend to do this. If you do, please meet me afterwards to take my business card. Here's another option. Maybe we can love the people. And I want to tell you a little story about how this sort of dawned on me. I have no loyalty to any hotel brand. Wherever I go in the world, whether it's a Hilton or a Marriott, I don't care. A Mercure, I don't care. Except when I go to teach in New Jersey in the United States. I always stay at the same hotel because of Terry. Terry works at the front desk, and she knows me. And when I walk in the door, she says, "Hello, Mr. Schaefer." And last year, at Christmas time, I took my last business trip of the year, and it was snowing. Do you get snow here? You know what I'm talking about? No, you don't, because you've never been to New Jersey in the blizzard. Snow. It's a blizzard. It's my last business trip of the year. I rode on the plane with a child that was sick and crying the whole time. I was starving, I was cold, I was exhausted, and I walked in the door, and Terry could tell. And when I got back to my room that night, there was a plate of fruit and cheese and a carafe of wine waiting for me with a note from Terry saying, "Mr. Schaefer, I know you had a bad day. I hope this makes you feel better." And the next morning, when I checked out of my room, she came out from behind the desk and she hugged me goodbye. Now, I don't know if that's politically correct today, but I liked it. And I wrote a blog post, and the title of the blog post was, "How I Was Hugged by a Brand." Literally. And Hyatt liked that blog post so much, they put it on their website. And Terry got a call the next day. And it was her day off. They said, "Terry, you need to come to work, and you need to look nice and dress up." So she came to work, and she was dressed up, and there was the president of Hyatt Hotels to congratulate her and thank her for hugging me. And a few weeks ago, Terry was named Employee of the Year of Hyatt. Now, I didn't even get a free breakfast out of it. But I think there's an interesting idea. It suggests a new way to think about how we communicate, right? Because this is how we normally communicate in our companies. It's like we're a broadcast tower, right? Here we are, we have something to say, we have a new product, we want to remind you, and what we know Nobody believes it. Nobody cares, and nobody believes it. They don't expect to believe what your company is saying because they think you're saying what you need to say. But what about all those other people out there? What about Terry? What if we made all of our employees like Terry? Today, having an effective social media presence is a life skill. What if more of our employees had that life skill and they knew how to tell our stories? Wouldn't we win? Wouldn't we have more people who are trusted tell our stories? And I had this example. And you don't need to pay attention to the names or the numbers, but I want you to look at the colors of these bars. I did a project with Adidas. In America, it's called Adidas. I may call it Adidas. Don't think I'm stupid. That's what we call it in America. But here it's Adidas. And the light bars, this is North Face. In America, we call it North Face. And that's what I'm going to call it. I don't know what you call it here. Probably something a lot more exotic and fun. So, all of these sporting goods dealers, companies like Adidas and North Face, they look for athletes and they sign contracts with athletes to represent their brands. So I was doing this project with Adidas and we were in a tough market. I don't know what's making that sound. I'm sorry. It's not me, I promise. The cheese was delicious this morning, but that was not me. So, oh, now I'm lost. Cheese, where am I? Montenegro's. I'm back. So, North Face. I was doing this project for Adidas. North Face, they're brilliant marketers. Every idea they had, that I had, North Face was already doing it. So I looked at their athletes. Who have they signed up? These are like the trail runners and the rock climbers and the people hanging from their tips, you know. And so all of them were doing a better job on social media. Now, Adidas, all their athletes are way down here. They're in Dubrovnik someplace, way, way down here, right? So, except Sasha. Look at Sasha. Why is Sasha doing so well? Because she also has a contract with Red Bull. Red Bull taught her how to be good on social media. I said, we can solve this. Let's train Adidas, right? So I started to think about this. This is how big companies work with these influencers. Can we do this with our employees? Can we do this with the people who work for us? Can anybody be known? So I think this is a really interesting idea. People do not believe our companies, our businesses, our ads. They believe each other. I think increasingly the personal brand is going to become part of the corporate brand. How did we build our businesses in the past? How did we know about Ivory Soap? It was through an accumulation of advertising impressions. We don't see ads anymore. Even if we see them, we don't believe them. The future, our businesses will be built through an accumulation of human impressions. Because this is what we want in our hearts. This is what we've always wanted. We want to know these people. We want to know, what do they do? How do they make this stuff? How do they treat their employees? What do they stand for? This is the future of marketing. So, for a few years, I became obsessed with this question. Can anybody become known? And I became obsessed, not in a healthy way. It was like I will lock myself in the room for hours and hours and hours, studying and thinking and reading, trying to figure out, can anybody become known? Is there a pattern? Is there a process? Now, I want to be clear here that known is not the same as famous. I'm not talking about turning everybody into YouTube stars or like people who break the internet. That's not what I'm talking about here. And the reason I included this slide is to demonstrate the amazing, and you just cannot debate the talent of this woman. It is so hard to hold your head this way. Try it at home. Don't do it now. I do not want to be responsible. This is what I mean. Can anybody have the reputation, the presence, and the authority, build that reputation, presence, and authority to give you the best chance to get your job done? To give you the best chance to achieve your goals, whatever that might be. Building a business, selling more stuff, being invited to speak here, writing a book, raising money for a charity. If you're known and other people aren't, you have a permanent and sustainable competitive advantage. It may be the only one that we have today. So I started on this journey. I did lots of research. I interviewed nearly 100 people from around the world in all different fields. Real estate, finance, education, construction, banking, art, music, fashion, in many countries around the world. And what I found is that every person in every field, in every country, did the same 4 things. Every time. No exceptions. And since my book came out last year, I've talked to hundreds of more people. And the people who are known in their field, there hasn't been an exception. I know how you become known in this world. Let's talk about a story, one of my favorite stories. He was actually one of the first people I interviewed for the book. And as you listen to this story, see if you can start to tell what the 4 things are. And we'll get into that. So this fellow in the middle here is a guy named Antonio Centeno. Antonio grew up in a very, very poor part of America. He grew up in a tiny little village, a very dusty village, and when he graduated from his high school, he realized he had no marketable skills. He couldn't get a job. Didn't even know how to type. So he joined our Marine Corps. He became an officer in the Marine Corps. And when he put on his uniform for the first time, he felt something he had never felt before. He felt proud. He felt respected. And he started to think about this connection between how we appear and how we perform. And he just couldn't get it out of his head that somehow your appearance might also affect how you see yourself, your self-esteem. So when he got out of the Army, when he got out of the Marines, he started an online business to sell suits. It was terrible. He was a complete failure. But he started creating content for his website. He started creating these short blog posts with fashion tips for men. And when I say blog, he dictated them. He never did learn how to type. Even when I was exchanging emails with him, he would send me like audio files back, answering my questions. So Antonio started to become famous for this content he was producing. And soon big fashion websites were saying, Antonio, can you create content for us? He said, I think I'm onto something here. And he noticed that nobody was creating content with fashion tips for men on YouTube. So he started doing little videos with fashion tips for men. He said, I was scared. I didn't know how to do video. I was really nervous about it, but I thought there was an opportunity here. So I wanted to learn how to do this, so I created 200 videos in 200 days. He said, I was terrible at first, but I got to be pretty good. And he said, you know what I'm going to do next, Mark? I'm going to create 1,000 videos in 1,000 days because I want to get really good at this. And I said, has this always been your passion? Has fashion been your passion? That's pretty good, isn't it? He said, no, my passion is motorcycles. But I knew I couldn't make a business on motorcycles. He said, it's amazing how many people miss this. That you can't just build a business on your passion. There has to be, sure, you've got to love what you do, but there's got to be enough people on the other side who care about it. There's got to be enough people to help you make your dreams come true. And I thought about it, and I studied it, and I knew I had something here with these videos. Let's start getting deeper into what happened here. Number one, Antonio found his place. And it wasn't necessarily his passion. Later in the conference, you're going to be hearing from an astronaut who I got to meet last night. I don't know if Mike's here or not yet this morning. But I was geeking out. Because when I was a little boy, I wanted to be an astronaut. I grew up in, when the Apollo program was going on. When I was a little boy, I did not dream of speaking at Spark Me someday. That was not my dream. I know that's hard to believe. I did not dream, oh, Daddy, can I be a digital marketing consultant someday? No. But you know what? I love what I do. I have fun every day. The day before yesterday, I spoke at a conference in London. Someone sent me an email and said, your talk changed my life. I went home that night and started reading your book, and I'm going to change my life because of what I heard from you that day. That's my fuel now, right? That's my purpose. And here's what happens most of the time in this world. It's not about following a passion. Many times your passion follows you. Instead of thinking, it might be your passion, but passion without a plan is a hobby. And hobbies are great. Sometimes they need to stay hobbies. So that's what I want people to do when they read my book, is just think it through. Give yourself the very best chance for your dreams to come true. Second thing is space. So the internet is a very, very crowded place. And success doesn't begin by just starting to create content. You need to do an assessment and figure out, where do I fit? Where is this space? For Antonio, he said, you know what? There is nobody creating these little videos on fashion tips. That can kind of be my thing. And he wasn't good at it at first. He was very scared to do this, but this was an open channel. Now, the fuel of creating a personal brand in the digital world today is content. And this is where a lot of people get confused and overwhelmed. We're going to talk about this in a minute, and I'm going to show you how easy this can really be, what an easy decision this really is. And finally, you have to create an audience that matters. Not necessarily a social media audience, but an audience that will help your dreams come true. And I also made this number 5. But I said these are kind of the 4 things that everybody did. There was also a common theme. Antonio created these videos for 3 years before he saw the big payoff. And I'm happy to say that today, Antonio is a multimillionaire. He has a conference, he's written books, he has webinars. And Antonio said, this is what drives me. He said, I want my children to have the opportunity to do whatever they want to do. I never had that chance. This is the purpose that drives me. And I kept hearing this theme that if you are just doing this for money, it's not going to work. You're not going to last. There's got to be something driving you, like we heard from Vanya when he was talking about his conference, right? This isn't about making money. It's about sharing. Really, it's about love. It is. I see it. That's what will drive you to success. So this is basically the core of what I wrote about. This is a book that came out. So I'll go through a little bit of some of these ideas in detail. The first one is this idea of place. And a lot of people tell me, you guys know The Simpsons? The Simpsons? So a lot of people tell me, well, the world is so crowded and so busy. How can I stand out? And 2 years ago, I was in Brazil. And a friend of mine said, oh, you must meet this food blogger. I'm thinking, another food blogger. How many food bloggers are there? Right. What is it? A bajillion. You're exactly right. You must have searched that real quick. Vanya, extra points right here for the lady up front. There are indeed a bajillion food bloggers. Now, how do you stand out in some place that's so crowded? This is Isadora Becker. She lives in Brazil, and what Isadora loves is movies and television shows. And she's a trained chef, but what she does is she dresses up like characters from the movies and the television shows, and she cooks famous dishes from those shows. Here she dresses up like Marge Simpson, and she made Homer's Donuts. On another episode, she dressed up like someone from Breaking Bad, and she made Blue Rock candy. So she found her voice. She found her place, what she wanted to be known for. That's step one. And you need to think about this. It doesn't have to be perfect, by the way, because your audience will kind of teach you as you go along. And here's one exercise that seems to help a lot of people determine, what do I really want to be known for? I want you to think about 2 years from now, you've been invited to speak here. Or if that terrifies you, you've been invited to be interviewed on a podcast. So you're ready to get up on the stage. And you're so excited because you have these ideas that you want people to know. And people have heard about you. Maybe they've heard people talk about you or blog about you, or maybe you've created some content by then. And there's this kind of anticipation. What are you going to talk about? What are the ideas you just can't wait to get out and tell the world? That could be a clue for eventually what you want to be known for. What is your place? Number 2 is space. And as I said, it's the beginning of this journey. It doesn't start with just starting to create content. You need to consider, where do I fit in this world? What's my angle going to be in this world? So I want to give you an example of a lady who lives in my community. Anybody here in real estate? One person in real estate, that's all. Okay. For this story, you'll have to leave the room. So, this is a young lady named Susie. Susie was under 30 years old. She lives in my community of Knoxville, Tennessee. As I said, Knoxville is a great place to live. We live in the mountains in this beautiful park. We have a big university there, and apparently we're almost also famous for having these real estate agents. Our city, our town is about 500,000 people, and we have 6,000 registered real estate agents. That is a lot of competition. And Susie had to find her space. How is she going to stand out? Where is she going to tell her story? And what she discovered, here is a universal truth. You'll have to close your eyes and cover your ears, sir. Real estate agents suck at social media. This is an Instagram account of one of Susie's competitors. And I want you to think about, what is the emotional connection you get to this Instagram account? Boring. Now, here is another one of Susie's competitors. This is the queen of real estate. And she demands that you worship at her sold sign. It's all about her. This is icky. Now, here's Susie's. What Susie does is she peels back the curtains of what it's like to be a real estate agent. What do you call that here? A solicitor? Or a real estate agent? Real estate agent. That's what you call it here. Okay. So, what she's become famous for is posting pictures of all the stupid things that people leave in their houses when they're supposed to be cleaned out. Like plastic donkeys and ceramic cats, sometimes even real cats. And my favorite picture that she ever posted was this one down at the bottom of the center. This is a young man who just closed on his first house. It's a picture of pure celebration and joy. Now, what's the emotional feeling you get from learning about Susie versus this? Right? Susie is having the courage to bring her whole self to her job, to show how she is human. And by the way, this picture is of Susie the day she opened up her own real estate office. Under 30 years old, she's now the fastest growing real estate agent in our city. She has 9 real estate agents who work for her. She didn't recruit any of them. They said, "We've seen you on social media. We are tired of working for the queen of real estate. We want to come work for you." Her biggest, most important customer came to her because of her pictures of cats. He said, "I love cats. I love cats so much. It's important for me to work with someone who understands how much I love cats. I have seen your Instagram account, and you, Susie, are the person for me." And she would have never had that business if she hadn't been human, shown her humanity. In fact, I think this is the killer app. This is really the rule for marketing as we go forward. The most human company will win. And when you go home to your own businesses, I want you to think about, how can we be the most human company in what we do? In every single engagement, every email, every letter, every phone call, every question, every meeting, how can we show our faces, show our smiles, show our hearts, maybe even show our hugs, like Terry does at the Hyatt Hotel in New Brunswick, New Jersey. The most human company will win. Content, this is a place where a lot of people get confused. Should I be on Facebook or Twitter or blog or podcast, or what do I do? And my competitors are doing blogs. Should I do a blog? It's not that hard. To build your brand and have the opportunity to have vast awareness, you need to pick one of these. If you're a big company with lots of resources, you can do several of these. But a lot of people, they try to spread themselves too thin. This is what I call the sources of rich content. I'll give you an example of what I mean. A few years ago, I wrote an article about a new technology that I was interested in around influence marketing. And the article was very, very popular. And I got a call 3 weeks later from a reporter from the New York Times. And she said, I'm doing research about this new marketing technique called influence marketing. Can I interview you for the New York Times? And she did. Now, would she have ever found me if I just tweeted my ideas? No. Or if I put it on Facebook. I've got to have something that's rich and deep behind this, right? So you need to create something written, like a blog, video, audio, or something visual like Susie did on Instagram. And you pick one and you stick with it for at least a year to see how it's going to work. This is a friend of mine named Sean. He's in the construction business. He was running a construction company, and he received some terrible news. His wife had been diagnosed with an incurable and terminal disease, and he has 5 children. A, he needed more money fast to pay the medical bills, and B, he needed to spend more time with his wife while she was still in this world. So he said, I'm kind of an expert in how to run a construction business. So he started creating content about how to run a construction business. And he gave it away. He just gave away his best ideas. And soon, people in the industry started talking about Sean and said, who is this guy? He's amazing. He's giving away all his best ideas. And now Sean has a speaking career. He's a consultant. He doesn't even have to leave his home for most of what he does. And he's got more money and more time to take care of his family. But it was all based on his content. Let's talk about a final idea. And I think we'll have time for a few questions. So let's talk about audience. One of the biggest myths in marketing today is that you should have a big social media audience. That's important because it represents potential. But usually a social media audience, those are weak relational links. They won't necessarily buy something from you. That engagement curve I showed, they're way down at the bottom, right? So you need to do something extra. And a great story, one of the stories from my book, this is Lorraine Lutz. Lorraine is an artist in South Africa. Well, she wanted to be an artist. Like most artists, she couldn't really make any money doing art. So she quit, she got a job, she hated it. She said, even though I've got this job, I'm going to create one piece of art every day. Now, if you're going to create a piece of art every day, it can't be very big. So she created a finished painting every day that was this big. She called it Art for Ants. And every day she posted her tiny painting on Instagram. She said, I am going to create a new painting every day for 365 days. And she became a sensation because people started to see, will she make it? Will she do it today? What's it going to be today? And every day they were following her. Did Lorraine make it? Did she do her painting today? She became more and more famous. People started to buy her paintings. At the end of 365 days, she became sad because her goal was over, but she was becoming known. And she was becoming so well known, she said, if you like me, here's another artist you should support. Here's another gallery you should support. She started to have a sense of purpose that I can do good things for people now because I'm known. She said, I don't want that to go away. So she kept going. And Lorraine Lutz has created a new original piece of art every single day since January 1st, 2013. She even created a new piece of art the day she had her baby. And I think this is a very important lesson. When I interviewed these people for my book, the last question I asked them was, if you could, reach out to the people reading my book, not in a creepy way, but in a helpful way, and give them one piece of advice to help them become known in this crazy busy world, what would it be? And almost all of them said, don't give up. You quit too soon. Consistency, tenacity, resiliency, hanging in there is almost more important than being smart. Just outlast them. Might be more important than having that big idea. So, consistency is really important. I want to come back to my original question, because I never really answered this. Can anybody become known? And the answer is maybe. The opportunity is there. Think about it this way. When I started my business career 35 years ago, that was, believe it or not, before the interwebs. How would I become known? I'd have to be on TV. I'd have to be in the newspaper a lot. And that is someone else's choice. Today, if you have an internet connection and a smart device, you can pick yourself. You can choose yourself. Every person in this room, every business in this room has the power to create your own influence, your own power. You have the opportunity to become known. Will everybody do it? No, because a lot of people are going to give up. They're not going to hang in there. The people in my book who I interviewed, on average, it took them about 2 years for their brand to really take off, right? Another thing that I think a lot of people ask me and they worry about is they say, well, are we too late? Hasn't everything been said? Hasn't everything been done? And I want you to think about this. 10 years from now, we'll look back at today and we'll say, oh, I wish I could go back to that room in Montenegro. The internet was just beginning. I'm kicking myself now. The people and the ideas and the content that are going to affect us the most 10 years from now haven't started yet. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your turn to become known. Thank you very much.